Welcome. I'm Julie Bacon, and you're listening to the Mindset Coaching for Handlers podcast, a podcast for dog handlers who are on a mission to achieve big goals. Here I share lessons, insights, personal stories, and tools you can apply during your next show, trial, or test to help you strengthen your mental game and hopefully cue more consistently. Be sure to check out the show notes where you'll find details about the episodes, plus important links, including the link to the Dogged Planner and Workbook created just for handlers on a mission. So if you're ready to improve your competitive mindset, get out of your own way, and connect with your dog like never before, then it's time to get comfy, bring an open mind, and work your mindset. Hey there, and welcome back to the podcast. Okay, this week I'm picking up on a topic I shared in my newsletter recently. And if you are not getting my newsletter, head to the show notes, sign up, get my emails. I only send out an email every week. And of course, I let you know about like specials and stuff. And if you are listening before the Black Friday things, I may have 3 Black Friday specials coming up, these consecutive Black Fridays, starting with the 15th. So look for those on social, or just look for them in your email if you sign up. So anyway, I was talking about this concept about being present to win, and I just decided I had more to say about it. So here we go. So you know that expression, you must be present to win. And I feel like it applies mostly to like contests or like, you know, volunteer raffles at trials or something, and that, you know, they're not going to mail your prize, etc. But I was thinking about it in the context of running and trialing and competing. And it just seemed to me that we have to be present to win, or to cue in our case, right? As is normally our goal, or, you know, to put in our best performance. And it requires us to be fully in the present moment. And I think that's something that we all know, but we struggle with doing on a regular basis, or we haven't done it enough that we don't know what it feels like. Because I think that a lot of us are running or competing or even training in spite of our minds being in other places, right? Like for instance, like I have absolutely run in a trial on like, quote, a work day. You know, maybe I was off, maybe I was pretending to work from home. You can't prove either one. But I was definitely distracted, right? There was something else going on in my life that was keeping me from being fully present. And how often does that happen? I mean, our lives are complicated. You know, maybe another dog is distracting us from running the dog that we have on the end of the leash. I mean, there's just so much that can take us out of the present moment. And I feel like as a society, if I can be so dramatic, I guess, that we are getting worse at focusing. You know, we're priding ourselves on this ability to multitask. And if you know about the brain or have listened to me at all, you know that we don't really truly focus on 2 things at once. We bounce back and forth. So our ability to multitask is really our ability to keep multiple tabs open, right? So think of your browser tabs and all of the tabs you may have open in your browser. I can't even count that high for mine. And you're constantly going from tab to tab to tab. So at any given point, you're only looking at one tab, but the back of your mind is sort of like also processing what was just in that other tab, because you're going to have to bounce back and bounce back and bounce back. And our pride in being able to, quote, multitask just means that we can go from tab to tab really quickly and be able to sort of like keep those things in mind, or juggle, or keep all the balls in the air, or whatever metaphor you would choose to apply to this. And that's great. That's great that everybody is going for that old Girl Scout badge, right, of honor in multitasking. However, what we are literally doing is we are training our neurons to behave that way. And we're training our nervous system to behave that way. And what happens in those moments is when anything in our world is stressful or hard or difficult, our brains immediately want to choose a different tab. Right? Because this other tab is more fun, you know, or let's go look at, you know, dogs making funny faces on the internet. That will be more fun. Or sometimes something is really not fun, but it's like compelling us to think about it, like work on a day that we're trying to trial. And so is the tab that like keeps just demanding our attention and taking it away from the thing that we want to be present in, which in that moment is running our dogs. So we have competing tabs, if we want to keep using this metaphor. And so it's not a great thing, because we're not really good at then sitting with one thing, focusing, staying in the moment, and just being fully in with our brains, our emotions, our actions, everything about us, just being fully present. Okay? And if we think about our elite athletes, our Olympic athletes even, or our elite handlers, one thing they are really able to do well is get into that flow state. And that flow state is, I feel like it's like the coveted, the holy grail, the thing everybody wants in sports, any sport. Could be golf, could be skiing, could be dogs. It doesn't matter. We covet that flow state. And a flow state has been described by researchers as that moment where, you are so hyper-focused on what you are doing that everything else fades away. That time has no meaning. You don't even know what time it is. Everything else, like the noises, the background, the weather, the other factors that are going on in your environment kind of cease to exist. And you are able to just tune it out. And I shouldn't say that. I think that's a common way to talk about it, that you're able to tune it out. You're not actively tuning out something. You are actively tuning in to your present moment. And I really think that should be the expression, but I'm not in charge of expressions in the world. So you are actively tuning in to only the task at hand. And, a lot of us talk about, I wish I could do that. I wish I could do that. And you can, right? We can train ourselves to do that. But what we have to do is stop letting ourselves off the hook. Stop giving ourselves the break. Right? Stop allowing some other distraction to take us away. Now, a lot of those distractions are like shiny and attractive and desired because they take us out of the stressful moment. Okay? Think of our dogs, right? Because sometimes it's easier to see ourselves in our dogs. So if we think of our dogs and we watch a dog training, like you're in class, say, or training on your own, who cares? And you're training your dog. And they're doing something and they're trying, but they're in that moment of trying to figure it out. So they make mistakes and they try again and they get closer, and you're, working on narrowing that criteria and really honing a skill. And all of a sudden your dog just leaves and just goes over and sniffs something, or does a quick zoomie, or does something ridiculously silly or completely different from what you're doing. And you're like, what the heck is going on? Why are you sniffing? Oh my God, don't do that. Bad dog, blah, blah, blah. What they're doing is they're releasing that energy because they have been focusing for a long time and they need a break. They need a distraction. Their brain is full. Like, you especially see it in puppies, right? You can almost read the meter in their brain where they're like, not full, half full, 3/4 full, full, and they're done. They're just done. And sometimes that's what happens to us. Sometimes the moment that we're in is so much for us. Maybe we're getting nervous. Maybe it's just a really big moment. Maybe it's just hard for us to stay in that moment. And so sometimes we need a distraction too. So yeah, the shiny object becomes really yummy, in that moment, really attractive because we want a break, right? If you've ever gotten in the middle of a course and, old days, maybe you're standing on the table or your dog's on the table, could happen in open and novice, but you're standing on the table and all of a sudden you forget where you're going next. That's because your brain was like, ooh, I've been holding it together and I need a distraction. I need a break. I need something else to do. So we have to build up that ability to be in the flow state for longer and longer, to be in the present for longer, to stick with one thing for longer. In some of us, like in agility, you might only be in the ring for, congratulations, 30 seconds, right? If that's all it is, other runs a minute. If you're doing obedience, you might be in there for 5 minutes. 8 minutes maybe. In draft, which is karting, which I do, some of the teams are in the ring for 10, 12 minutes. So that means you're focusing for that amount of time. You're asking your dog to focus for that amount of time. They're getting no treat rewards. They've just you for their feedback. And you're having to stay in the moment for that long. Okay. Well, that's hard, right? And I would argue that those sports where we are in the ring for 5 minutes, 8 minutes, 10 minutes, that we are taking little mental breaks here and there, because our brains aren't really good at just staying in the moment for that amount of time. And so that is a skill that we can learn, because we need to learn it. We want to learn it. We're asking our dogs to learn it, right? Are you asking your dogs to focus in the ring for 5 minutes, but you can't? Okay, maybe that's not fair, right? And yet our dogs are really good at staying in the present moment. So there's so much to be learned from them there, because they're not thinking about, old worries or, new worries in the future. They don't use their imagination in that way. Humans, I think, are rare in our ability to conjure up these sometimes catastrophic future moments and turn them into worry and anxiety and oh my godding, my latest verb, because we're afraid of what could happen, or we're afraid we won't get the outcome, right? That's using our imagination, not for good, let's just say, okay? We're using our imagination to worry instead of using our imagination to visualize, like the positive, okay? But how often a day do you worry about something? Do you worry about the future? Do you worry about something happening or not happening, as the case may be? Just like in the past, a lot of times we're living in the past. We're thinking about things that happen. Maybe we're beating ourselves up over a mistake. Maybe we're having a regret. Maybe we're wishing something had turned out differently. That's living in the past. So in terms of tabs, right, if we go back to that, we are constantly opening tabs in the future, and instead of choosing the tab that is the present moment, right? The project, the thing that we are working on right now. So let that sink in for a minute, and I'll be right back. Quick question. Do you ever wish you had more mindset help? Well, the Q membership was created just for that reason. Every month we pick a topic, and then we have 4 lessons, which are kind of like these podcasts, that we dive deeper into. And so if you are ready for more, you're ready for more mindset work, think about joining the Q membership. Annual members get a free coaching session, but you can also choose the monthly option as well. Go to theqcoach.com to learn more. Let's get back to the episode. Okay, so if we have a goal of staying in the present and staying in the present for longer periods of time, then we have to practice, right? That's all there is to it. We need the mental stamina, the focus to be able to stay in the present, okay? Now, the good thing about competition and about it getting our feelings up, if you will, right? Because a lot of us don't necessarily get nervous, but we get excited, or we get like that tingle, or that I don't know. For me, it's almost like a sizzle, that we feel when we go into competition. And of course, yes, sometimes I get downright nervous, but most of the time I'm just really buzzing, I guess, right? And what's good about that feeling, whether you're buzzing or whether you're in a full-blown panic attack, okay, which is not funny, but the extent of the continuum there could go the whole range. What it forces us into is a period of hyper-focus. And hyper-focus is something that we can work with when it comes to being in the present moment. Because of course, I want a little buzz, a little tingle. I want to feel something, right? When I'm competing, because it does help me remind me you need to focus on this thing right now. You have no brain space to have other tabs open or be bouncing back and forth or be thinking about, what you're going to do on Monday or what have you. You need to be here now. Okay. And, for me, one of the things I always love about going to class or even teaching class is for that hour, I'm literally just in that hour. I don't have to check my phone and see what's going on at work. I don't have to, check other things or check in with other people. A lot of times I leave my phone in the car, which is often true even at a trial. Sometimes I only have my phone on me to listen to music, and the rest of the time I don't check it. I'm not checking messages and things like that because I don't want to be distracted. And sometimes I can handle the distraction, and sometimes I know I can't. So that's the other thing about yourself, is that self-awareness about realizing when you can handle checking text messages and stuff during the day, or maybe you've got a really long break and you're like, I can do it then, or something like that. And when you can't, when you realize that like, nope, it's taken me away, and maybe for, a half hour before I run or an hour before I run, I'm not going to check anything because I don't want to be thinking of those other things. Okay. I want to be switched into that hyper-focus mode. So the reason sometimes stress, sometimes nerves even, sometimes even anxiety can flip us into hyper-focus. And the reason that's good is it brings us back to the thing that we are, in the anxiety case, worried about. And in that moment, sometimes that's the run. Oh my God, what's going to happen? Now, I have always said that when you are really nervous about a run, you are probably, not always, but probably thinking about the outcome. You're worried about the cue. You're worried about how this moment you're about to walk into is going to end, essentially. Like, how's this run going to end? Is it going to end in disaster, or is it going to end in glory, right? So when we are nervous, we are thinking about how it's going to end. And that becomes the problem with nerves, is it takes us to the finale, right? It takes us ahead of the game instead of sitting in our process goals and just thinking about executing the next piece, the next piece, the next piece, okay? So getting into hyper-focus reminds us, oh, I need to be here now. I need to be in this moment now. And if I'm feeling anxiety, then it's reminding me that I need to be focusing on my process goals. Right? So here I am using my anxiety for good, if you will, using my nerves as a reminder that, oops, probably thinking about the outcome, probably thinking about the fact that it's, getting close to the end of the year, getting close to qualifying for nationals, or, or finishing a title before year's end, and I'm feeling all the feels and I'm letting it get to me. So we can use that to our advantage and almost use it as a handling cue, a handling reminder that like, oh, I've let myself think about the outcome. I've let myself, go off in this direction, and I'm not really sitting here in the present with my process goals, with the things I know I need to do in order to put myself in a position to cue, right? Because if we can't execute the run the way we want, the cue's not on the table, right? It's just not on the table, and even if we execute everything perfectly, there's still a judge standing in the middle of the ring, or, some other factors that could come in because, again, we don't control all of it. So when we think about wanting to be present and wanting to get good at being present, we can practice that by turning up that focus muscle, if you will, throughout the day, throughout our lives, in whatever we do. Right? So if we sit down to do something on our laptop, for instance, that we're going to sit down for the next half hour and just get that done, just the one thing, instead of let ourselves, and I'm queen of this, be distracted by, oh, I'll answer this text. Oh, that reminds me of, oh, I should go do this. Oh, I should go do this, right? I am the person with 20 tabs open in my browser, 100%. But I also have learned how to focus and what to do in my environment to help me focus, which is put away the phone, maybe put on some music that helps me get in the present, maybe not not be social butterfly for an hour before I run so that I can really get in the moment. And other things I do outside of a trial environment include visualizing, meditating, focusing on work for a while, making myself focus on just one thing, So those are all the little ways that it adds up to developing our ability to get into the present when we choose, stay there, and have some mental stamina for that moment. And when we start to do that, then we start to get really close to that flow state. And then we start to understand what it's like to just truly immerse yourself in what's happening right now. Immerse yourself in your relationship with your dog and how fabulous they are, and then run that dog in the present moment and really tune into who they are today, right? We all have different moods. I have different moods every day. The dog has different moods. Who is this dog that's showing up? And the dog's like, who is this handler that's showing up, right? So when we tune into all of those things and we're fully just like dissolve into the present moment, we also can take in our environment in a more constructive and helpful way that will help us perform better, right? Because if I'm really tuned into my dog and what they're doing, I might make different decisions. I might make different choices. I might be more supportive than I would normally be if I was in my own headspace, sort of ignoring what was on the end of my leash, just being a human Pez dispenser before we walk into the ring. That's not connection. True connection is in the present moment and is not just our dogs looking longingly at us, but is really hearing them and seeing that, oh, that other dog is kind of bothering them. Weird, interesting. I can pull my dog aside or something, right? Just making things up for the argument, but you get it? So you want to get good at that. So yes, meditating is a way to get good at that because we have to sit I don't even mean physically sit, but we have to stay in the present moment. So you can do a walking meditation where all you're listening to is the sound of the birds. And every time your mind wanders, you just bring it back to birds. Can I hear birds right now? What birds are those? I don't know the name of the birds, but the birds are pretty or whatever. It doesn't have to be complicated, okay? A walk in the woods where you're just listening to the wind or the breeze or the trees or the sounds of your dogs running next to you. Like that is meditating because you are learning to be in that moment. And yes, meditating also is sitting and focusing on your breath for a few minutes. And it can only be 3. Then maybe it's 5. Then maybe it's 6. Then maybe it's 10. And your nervous system starts to relax. Your nervous system, your parasympathetic nervous system, the part of your nervous system that is responsible for safety and rest and relaxation, starts to come alive. And it starts to tell you that, oh, it's safe to just be here now. I don't have to be on this high alert, checking all the tabs, doing all the things all at once. I can be here now. So that's a really important lesson for your brain and your nervous system. And it's really important too for your performance in sport. Okay? It's all connected. Visualization, brilliant for this because again, you're sort of meditating on memories, if you will, right? So if you're doing what I call reverse visualization, which is hello memories, then you are looking at your phone, you're picking a memory maybe, you're picking a photo, and you're like reliving everything about that wonderful day. Right? Maybe it's a photo of your dog in a Q ribbon or a new title ribbon, and you're like, oh my God, that was such a great day. The sun was shining. You know, this was the judge. This was the feeling when we walked in the ring. You know, the start line was great. Like everything was great about it. Everything was just so came together. And you sit in that moment and you think about nothing else than reliving that moment. You are teaching your brain to be with you in your present thoughts. Yes, it's happening in the past. Yes, you're visualizing, but you're teaching your brain to focus. Just as normal visualization, which is out in the future, where you are thinking of maybe a run or maybe just how you want a given Wednesday to go. And you think about everything that is attached to that with feeling, with emotion, with, as many senses as you can conjure. Maybe there's certain sounds. Maybe there's, the sound of what your dog sounds like next to you, kind of a thing. Okay. So all of those things help us get good at focusing for longer periods of time, which is really just a glorified way of staying present. And staying present gets us to that flow state. It gets us to, us being more responsive as handlers, more in tune with what our dog needs and is doing, etc. And that just all makes it all go better, right? So yes, you must be present to win or you must be present to cue. So that is my challenge to you for this week, this weekend. But I want you to work it more than just at the trial. Because like every skill, you don't just practice when you're on the line and, they're calling you into the ring. You practice outside the ring. You practice on any given Tuesday at your, lesson. So next time you go to your group lesson, see how you can practice being present. The next time you're in the grocery store, see how you can practice being present. See if you can work in, and I know you can. Don't tell me you don't have 3 minutes a day to meditate. You do. But see when you can create a habit of that and stack it onto some other habit you're already doing. Like for instance, I often will meditate after I work out because I'm already there. I'm already stretching. I'm sitting on the mat, whatever. What a perfect time to just pop in a guided meditation and just do it right there. Okay. So think about stacking those habits, whether it's meditating, visualizing, what have you, onto something else you're already doing. Okay. Practice the skill outside the ring so that when you want it in the ring, you have it and you trust it and you believe in it and you can call upon it at will. Because that's what we want to do, right? We want to get into that flow state, get into that present moment when we snap our fingers, just on demand. And the only way that's going to happen is if we practice it, okay? So practice it. Let me know how it goes. Let me know what you're incorporating or what habits you're stacking with it. And as always, whatever you're doing this week, have a fantastic week with your dogs. Thanks so much for listening to the Mindset Coaching for Handlers podcast with me, Julie Bacon. I am so grateful for your precious time. Check out my Dogged Planner workbook and journal available on Amazon. Just search for Dogged Planner. I also offer monthly membership that's perfect for ongoing support of your awesome goals. Check out theqcoach.com for details or just stop by and check out all the ways you can work on your mindset. And be sure to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at theqcoach and let me know how it's going. Finally, please share, subscribe, and leave a review. This helps us podcasters tremendously. Plus, I know I get my best podcast recommendations from friends. Thanks and have a great week with your dogs.